Well, speaking of the future, and let's try to tie the future in with the environment and things like global warming, one of your
Yeah,
favorite subjects,
sure.
because you had mentioned fracking. Are we getting to the point that we're so eager to bring America back to those points in history, or to grow America? Are we doing things that future generations might pay for?
Oh, hell no, absolutely not. As you know, one of the reasons I like Donald Trump is he's as skeptical of global warming as I am, and many of the world's leading climate scientists and astrophysicists share that view. There is no global consensus that anthropogenic global warming is a menace to the world, and I think he's listening to the right voices. When people talk about environment, I'm an environmentalist myself. I'm for clean air. I'm for clean water. I'm for preserving our forests and our lakes and our rivers and maintaining as many healthy species as we can. But what the environmentalists talk about when they talk about environmental protection, it's CO2 and anthropogenic global warming abatement. And everything is focused on CO2, CO2, CO2. CO2 happens to be a trace gas. It's far less than 1% of the world's atmosphere. And there is no decent correlation between CO2, which has risen in the past years, not to any dangerous levels, but it keeps monotonically going up for all kinds of reasons. And for the last 15 years, we've had no warming. So all of the computer predictions that say as CO2 goes up, the heat goes up, the glaciers are melting. Newsflash, the glaciers have been melting for the last 350 years since the last ice age. So I think Donald Trump and his administration, being intelligent, sensible human beings, are as much for the real environment as anybody could ask. What they reject is the theory that CO2 is the big villain and we need to sacrifice manufacturing. We need to sacrifice just about everything in the name of CO2 abatement. That's what he rejects. That's what most sensible conservatives reject, and that's exactly what he's going to do. We do not see CO. You go too far on reducing CO2. What you're going to do is you're going to reduce the effectiveness of agriculture, because CO2 is the number one plant food.
Well,
so I don't see anything that this administration is doing in terms of economic stimuli, stimulating manufacturing, bringing jobs back to the energy industry, et cetera, that is going to, quote, affect the health of future generations. Not going to happen.
In the 80s, I lived in New York for a while, and I lived in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And you could cut the air in LA.
That's the kind of pollution that we have to get rid of.
Okay, that
has nothing to do with CO2.
But
Nothing.
Does it have to do with the automobile industry and the regulations that your
Sure.
industry?
Yeah, and today you've got some old cars. Every time you take that thing out, you're polluting as much as over 2,000 new cars. And yet you still enjoy the right to drive your old car.
Exactly.
So a little of that is okay. But it's clear that to control oxides of nitrogen is the right thing to do, control unburned hydrocarbons, and control carbon monoxide. Those three are bad dudes. And thanks to work between the government and the automotive industry, that is reduced to like 1 part per 10,000 of what it used to be. And that's good stuff. And not polluting rivers and streams, making sure we have the regulation to where, chemical processing companies can't dump into public waterways. All that makes sense. And nobody is talking about making any of that go away. Again, the only thing that is going to die is this vilification of CO2 as the destroyer of the planet and all human life.